All right, guys. So what we're going to do now is an exercise. And I think the three of you should do it together, to be honest, because there's no reason for you all to be independently. So I suggest you look, when I give you the data set, that you all three look at it together, okay? So, where is it? Stop. There it is. Okay. So here's your data set. Yeah. You go ahead and follow the steps and do it. You can do it together. If you want, only one of you need to, you can have a secretary and only one of you need to write it down. But anyway, make sure that you follow the steps. Now, there's one different thing about this one. You're going to have to include in your steps that you've got 4 different times. Okay? So, by that I mean, let me change this into a doc thing. Which I think, perfect. So, when you do your categorization, what you want to do is have three columns, because you're going to have particular time, then English like, and then non-English like. Okay, so the difference between this one and the ones we just looked at was this has 4 slices of time, right? Week 1, week whatever it is, 5, week 11, week 17. So you're going to have week 1. What's English like and what's non-English like? Okay, then you're going to have the next time, week 4. So you're not only looking at a slice of time, you're then going to also look across time. Okay, but each of your English like and non-English like should be attached to the time, because that's important, right? Because the language is developing over time. Does that make sense? Good. All right, why don't we go through it together so that we can see how you would do this, okay? I heard some good things happening, and I want to take you through this one more time now you've had a chance to look at it. All right, so everybody at home, I hope you had a chance to do the work and do the analysis, and now we're going to go ahead and take a look at what you should have gotten. All right. So the first thing is you should have this, right? Which is your target, like your 4 times, 1, 3, 11, and 17 different weeks, and your target like and non-target like, and ambiguous if you found any, and we can talk about that in a second. What about the first part of the data set, which was describe? What can you tell me about that? Where was that?
You said that he was taking I don't have to be...
No, describe.
Oh, sorry.
Here.
Spoken.
Good. It's all spoken.
It's not in the classroom.
It's not in the classroom. It's spontaneous speech.
Speaker is male, 33 years old.
It's a single student, a male Spanish student of English who's 33 years old. Okay? So do we know anything about the native language? In some cases, yes. Diego speaks the native language. So does Mark. So you may be wanting to pull some of that in at a later stage. But as I just said to Mark, don't make the mistake that every single thing he's doing must be coming from Spanish. Remember what we said last week. About 1/3 of the errors come from the native language. 2/3 of the errors do not. They're not from transfer. So we don't want to say every single thing that we see is happening because of transfer from Spanish. Now, it may be that you look at something and you say, but this, really does look like transfer from Spanish if you know Spanish, and that's great. Okay, that's fine. Do we know anything about the target language? Yes, we know how negation works in English. And at this point, you want to just remind yourself, this is a data set about negation. How does negation work in English? All right. It works with, in this case, we have a lot of do support negation. So do plus negative plus verb, right? So if you need to, remind yourself of what that syntactic pattern is in English, okay? All right, so then I divided into my categories. I have time 1, 2 sentences there. Time 2, which is week 3, 5 there. Week 11, we had 5, and week 17, we had 2, right? So that's how you've divided yours. So now you've got categories divided by it. So the first thing you want to do is start looking now for fit and exceptions, right? And if you've got multiple times, the way to do that first is to start per time, right? Don't try and compare time 1 to time 4, right? Just start working on one time at a time. Do it one aspect at a time. So what can we say about time 1? Time 1, both correct, right? I don't have time to go to college. I don't have the car, right? But clearly, just from perusing the data, as you did your native like and non-native like, this changes, right? I mean, if you just had this time and this data, you'd say, well, I don't know why we're even bothering, because this dude, you know, can do negation just fine, right? But then what you find as you go through the times is he can't, right? So as it's clear that he can't, because you've got all these other times, these are both correct. It changes in later times. So it's clearly not true that the speaker has acquired all the negatives. So what might be happening in time 1? What hypothesis might you make for the fact that you've got 2 that are perfect in time 1, but then that goes to pieces in time 2, 3, and 4? I'll take anything from the 3 of you.
It could be that he's taking don't have to be one cluster, one unit that equals negation.
Good. What you want to do is you look at the similarity. Can you actually read this? Or is it too little? Okay. Similarity between the 2 examples you have. And the similarity is I don't have. Right? In both cases, his negation is I don't have. So a fair possibility is that this is what we call an unanalyzed chunk. Okay? He doesn't actually know what he's saying. He doesn't know that he's saying do plus not plus verb in the what's the word I'm looking for? To have, to be, to infinitive, sorry. So thank you. So what we can assume is he maybe doesn't know that. He hasn't analyzed that. He can just use I don't have, okay? Because if we look at the next time, which is week 3, so time 2, which is actually week 3, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are all incorrect. Okay? They're all incorrect. So clearly we don't have a you know, a good grasp on it. All right, so talk to me about the incorrect ones. What's happening? Here's where you could use the Spanish, right? Because which one looks like Spanish?
No remember, no understand.
Good. No remember, no understand. What about I know understand? Also, yeah. So at this point, it looks like he's trying to work out. Here he was just like copying some language. Here he's trying to work out what the difference is between Spanish and English, right? This does look like straight up and down transfer. And we know that because we know how it looks in Spanish. So now the point is, what is he transferring? What is he doing? You have to explain what he's choosing to do. Yeah, anyone, any of the three of you.
In Spanish, you can include a pronoun in the verb.
Okay, so in the places where he's got a missing pronoun, that's no remember, no understand, don't remember, right? But then we've got some that he does have a pronoun. So this suggests that what? No.
He thinks that it's possible to either have it or not.
Good. Yes.
Either have it or not.
Right now, we're in this transitional grammar where he seems to think you can have it or you don't have it, right? So it's a crapshoot. He's got 2 in which he has it and 3 in which he doesn't have it. So I think that's a perfectly reasonable answer, Mark, that it seems to be, so pronoun missing and pronoun present. Now, what makes this even more likely if we look at the other times? What's the difference between time, the second time, and the third and fourth time?
Started including the pronoun.
Good. He's worked out that it isn't a crapshoot and that he has to have the pronoun in there. And he doesn't make that mistake in time 3 and time 4. He's gotten rid of that problem, right? He understands that he has to have a pronoun. But I think that's a perfectly legitimate hypothesis for the second time. That in some cases he puts it in, and in some cases he doesn't. Now, there's one other issue in the second time that's going to come back to bite him. And what's that?
Don't.
Which don't? Don't. Tolu? Good. Don't can. This is another thing that you would pick up from time 2. And you would say, there's a problem here with don't can. Don't can explain is how this learner is going to do it, right? So what's the difference between don't can explain and what you would actually say in English? What would you actually say? Can't explain, or sorry, can't explain in American English. Yeah, my bad.
Roger Daltrey said can't explain.
Huh?
Roger Daltrey said can't explain.
Can't explain. Did he?
I think he did, but they all sang with American accents.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I always think that particular Britishism is wonderful for learners because in America, they're forever going, did you say can or can't? But in British, it's like can or can't, right? So you sort of get used to it. Anyway, so if you look at what the grammatical thing is in English, I can't explain versus what he's done, I don't can explain. That, what do you think might be happening? Compare it to this up here, time 1.
He thinks can't or don't just means no.
Good. He's worked out that no remember isn't right, but he doesn't realize that you take this verb, the can, and you negate it. What he thinks is you just whack a don't in front of it, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's don't, can, but so that's your theory, right, for this one. But then in time 3, is that supported? Yes or no? I don't know why I said but. It is supported, right? Because he says I don't talk English. And he's still there with the I don't can move, right? It just so happens that talk is not an auxiliary verb, right? So the reason you can't say I don't can explain, you have to say can't explain, is because can is an auxiliary verb, right? So you can say can't, you can say be is an auxiliary verb, so you can say won't, right? But verbs like talk, like understand, okay, they're not auxiliary verbs. So you don't say I don't not understand, or don't understand. I don't quite know how to say that, but anyway. So basically at time 3, you can say, here we are at time 3, which is week 11. Variable now. 1 is correct and 2 are now incorrect. So the one that's correct, what does that tell you that he's done between time 3 and time 1?
Could you get it now?
Oh, hold on. Look at time 3, which is now correct. Look what he was doing in time 1. What do we think is happening here?
Figured out don't is its own.
Good. And this is also supported by this thing in time 2, right? He's managed to do don't. He's basically like, I get this whole negation thing. You just stick don't in front of a verb. No problemo, right? So at this point, he's got don't probably still as an unanalyzed chunk, right? This point we've taken have away, but it looks like we've still got don't. Because when he tries not to use don't in time 3, what happens? What does he use instead? No, which is incorrect, right? We're back to the Spanish, right? I know, remember, I know like my coffee, rather, okay? So he, at this point, he's got, I don't talk, I don't understand, I don't have. So this is all good. He's managed to move on from time 1, where it was all I don't have, right? He's worked out that don't is the most important thing. Remember in time 2, he was still doing some Spanish. He's still doing some Spanish stuff in time 3. I know, like, basically anytime he tries not to use don't, he falls apart, right? What about time 4? What's happening in time 4? He's got a new problem in time 4. He's incorrect. And why is he incorrect in time 4?
Because it's sure.
Say that again. Yeah, I think you both said the same thing. Tense. Yes? Yeah.
But don't to do in past as well as the verb.
Right. Okay. So what he doesn't realize is, what do you do in, what would be correct? I don't saw is ungrammatical. What would be grammatical? I didn't see. Good. I didn't see. So what's happening? How do we make past tense negatives in English? Where does the past tense sit? Yeah, it sits in the auxiliary, right? Yes? Right. He doesn't understand that. So for him, he's still using this unanalyzed don't chunk. And then if he wants to do a past tense, he's putting the past tense on the verb, right? This suggests even more, right, that he really can't analyze this I do not, I did not, right? He's not seeing it as three things. I do not or I did not, right? Because what he does is he says, I don't, and then if it was in the past, he puts the past tense on the verb. In this case, see, and in the second case, make. Good, make. Mm-hmm.
It's good if it's irregular past tense.
Right, right. And he's doing it as a regular past tense because it's clear that in his system, he doesn't realize that the one that's got a shift is the auxiliary. Now, when you think about this, when you start putting all this together like this, you realize how complicated English grammar is, right? Because just when you think you've got it right, something else comes along, right? He understands now that there's a pronoun and a don't, but he still hasn't broken it down into its component grammatical parts. Okay? So, you've got a bunch of stuff here, right? You've been making notes on time 1, time 2, time 3, time 4, right? So then what's the next thing that you do? You've categorized it. And you've looked for patterns and fit and exceptions. So give me a couple of statements that sound like, does anyone have a spare piece of paper? Do you have a spare piece of paper? Give me a couple of statements that sort of that hypothesize what's happening in this data. Start by saying something like, start by prefacing your sentences. At time 1, it seems that what?
Student was not able to distinguish units.
Okay. The learner is using I don't have as one unanalyzed chunk, right? That's your hypothesis for time 1. Then you can make a statement along the lines of, you know, this looks like his negation is perfect, right? Which is what often happens, by the way. We think someone's learned something, but in fact it's unanalyzed, so it's not. His negation is perfect, but when we look at time 2, So you can do this as a kind of narrative. Look at time 2. It is not, right? In time 2, give me something that hypothesizes what's happening in time 2.
He doesn't yet know
Okay.
that.
Try and do it in positives. Like, what is he doing? In time 2, he seems to be,
Transferring.
yeah, largely transferring Spanish forms as he tries other negation other than I don't have, right? So in other words, you're hypothesizing that between time 1 and time 2, what's happened? What's happened between time 1 and time 2?
He broke apart the pronoun.
Good. He broke apart the don't and the have and the pronoun. Okay? He broke it apart. That's exactly what you're hypothesizing. That somewhere between time 1 and time 2, he's broken these things apart. So now he is transferring some from Spanish with no pronoun. Okay? He is able to put another verb instead of have. So he can use other verbs there, like remember or whatever. Oops, there. And then whatever else you're going to say about that. Now, time 3. Well, actually, you've got one more thing to say about time 2, right? What's your last thing you're going to say about time 2? This gives him a problem with what?
Pronoun?
A problem with?
Pronoun?
No. What's the problem?
He is no longer negating properly.
Be very specific. This gives him a problem with what verb?
No.
No. Can. Good. This gives him a problem with can, because now he's trying to treat can like talk, understand, or whatever. So the fact that he's broken this apart is good, but he's now having trouble working out where that auxiliary goes. Okay. Time 3, the problem with can persists, right? And we never get any more data, no more data. So from time 4, there's no data. So we don't know if he's worked that out, okay? What else is happening?
By time 3, he begins including the pronoun.
Good. By time 3, pronoun always included.
But he is unable to break down further don't.
Good. But it looks like he can't break down. And what's making you say that?
He incorrectly adds don't as a negation to I don't can't read.
Well, right, we've already talked about that. That's our problem with can.
And then when
Well, so one thing I would say here is that I know like. So if he doesn't use don't, he goes back to the Spanish, right? So it looks like he's not, you know, can either use don't or he retreats back into the Spanish. Now there's something else here at time 3. You said he now always includes the pronoun, which is true. What pronoun? Okay. So I wonder, is that the only pronoun that he can do that with? Remember, the fourth part of your analysis is what hypotheses what more data do I need to see? So that's something that you'd want to notice, that he always includes the pronoun, but it's always the I pronoun, okay? And then finally, in time 4, we see what? Trouble with the past. Well, first of all, what do we see that fits everything else that Diego was saying before?
He's continuing to
Yes.
include the pronoun.
Yes, and don't. Good. We see this I don't, again, looking like an unanalyzed chunk. So maybe all that's happened is that he's realized he can get rid of the have. He's realized he has to have a pronoun. It's not a crapshoot, right? But it's still not obvious to us that he understands that I don't is actually I do not. Then you come to your part, Mark, which is clearly, so he doesn't understand, or he doesn't use the fact that past tense belongs on the auxiliary. Okay, so he puts it on the main verb. So at this point, if you wanted some kind of concluding, at this point, you'd have some kind of concluding sentence that would say, you know, based on this, he can use, inside his system, if I took a slice of his system at time 4, okay, he's learned to separate don't and have. He's learned that there's got to be a pronoun, at least for the first person. That's the only one we've got evidence. Probably, based on this evidence, has not learned yet or cannot manipulate the fact that do plus not plus main verb, okay? Thus, when it comes to the past, where you'd have to have did plus not plus main verb, he's not doing it, okay? Because for him, the don't is a single item. Does that make sense? Okay, part 3, done. Score. All right, last part, what more data do we need? You just said something about pronouns. What more data do we need about that?
Some sentences where he's using second person and third person.
Good, good. Need some data where he's using second or third pronoun, person pronoun. He doesn't, she doesn't, you don't, whatever, to see if he Gets that. What else could we use? There's something else we could use that directly relates to that. What happens to don't in the third person?
Changes.
It does. To what doesn't? So if you had a third person, if he said he don't, that's more evidence for what?
He just thinks don't.
He just thinks it's don't. Good. He really cannot split up this do and not, right? If he says doesn't, then it'll be very interesting, right? Because then clearly he's on his way, right? So you would want some of that data. Okay. What else might you need? I mean, what else would be useful to have? Sorry, Mark.
That's right. Some more past tense, and also we don't have any future either.
Good. Some past, some future. Tenses to see what happens with, to see if he can ever get it right, right? Right now we've only got 2 examples, saw and made. It would be nice to have a bunch to see if that he always does the exact same thing, right? Or whether he might be on the move. What else? Anything else? What else? One more thing that I'd like to see.
Some more use of can.
Yes, that's exactly right. In time 4, we have no examples of can, so we don't know if he's managed to shift. We know that in time 2 and time 3, he couldn't. So it'd be interesting to see in time 4, can he use can properly? And then you're done. You are done. Okay, let me say a couple of things. Why am I putting you through this pain? You ask yourself. Because this, as teachers, is basically what you should be learning to do, right? You should be able to listen to your students and get some idea of what they can do and what they can't do. Where's their system at? That can help you drive the activities. Like, we already now have 3 things that we want to know about this guy, right? And you can drive the material towards those things to see what you can find out, right? About what he knows and what he doesn't know. Think of the first one we did, the 3 Arabic students. Okay, let's say you have a class full of Arabic students, right? If you did some analysis like this, you could say, well, I don't know any Arabic, and maybe this isn't because of Arabic transfer, but it might be. So let me ask someone who does know some Arabic, or look in a book or whatever, and find out if there is some kind of distinct plural differentiation in Arabic between quantifying phrases and numbers, right? That would be a good place to start looking. We don't know for sure it's transfer, but it would be a good place to start looking if you don't know any Arabic, right? So the idea of this is not to put you through completely meaningless pain. The idea is to get you used to looking at samples of your students' work and really doing the analysis, okay? Rather than just sort of looking at vaguely and saying, well, intermediate students do this or don't do that or do whatever, okay? And the second thing I want to say is it takes time to do this, right? It just took us, I know everyone thought they were getting out early today because I said, but it took us an hour to go through and do this. So that's why I'm giving you 2 weeks to do your data analysis. Please don't leave it till the day before, because it's going to be a horror show. I can guarantee you it will be a horror show. You have a lot of information to take in and work to do. It's best to do it over time, okay? What you're going to end up with is something exactly like what we just put down here, okay? With the 4 stages and then so you go through your 4 stages and then you put in your analysis and what fits, what doesn't fit, what this makes you think that the place they are, and then the new data that they need, okay? But obviously don't write it like this because I can't read it. So you need to type it. So the data analysis that you will do is, I'm going to give the people that are here a hard copy. Could you send that back up there? This is the data analysis that you guys are going to do. It's your data analysis 1. For everybody at home, this is in your doc share. You just want to print it out, okay? It says data analysis 1. And I just want to say one thing before we, the first part of it is the description of the data, right? This is the description of the data. It's done for you. Native language, target language, data source, age, gender, and so on. Don't ignore this. This can have, you know, implications for your analysis. Assume that if it's here, this is something you might be able to use in your analysis. In these data analyses also, they're giving you some background of the native language, okay? So this analysis, this first analysis that you're going to do is about question formation. And in the linguistic background, because the first one you're going to look at is a Japanese learner, a single Japanese learner who started data collection at 5 years and 4 months and went on until 6 years and 5 months, okay? It's giving you some linguistic background. Remember that 5 years and 4 months is not considered to be a simultaneous bilingual. At 5 years and 4 months, you're a second language learning child, right? The architecture of your first language is already in place. So they're giving you some linguistic background from Japanese. Assume if they give you some linguistic background, you're supposed to look at it. Don't ignore it, okay? It means that you might be able to say something plus or minus about whether you think it is transfer or you think it isn't transfer, okay? There are 2 parts to this problem. One is the Japanese child, and the second one is a Norwegian child. The other great thing that this one gives you is it gives you the questions you're supposed to answer. This will help you do that bit we just did. That bit where we said in time 1, in time 2. In these data analysis, you just answer the questions. For example, question number 1, consider the way this child forms questions at month 1. What kind of generations has she made about English questions? Okay, so this is going to help guide you through the data. What you do is you answer these questions and that will guide you through what you should be looking at in the data. Any immediate questions from the people here?
So all we have to do is just answer the questions.
You do. You follow the questions, and that's the way you're going to do that thing that we just did, where we said time 1, time 2, that thing that we just did together. You're going to be guided on how to do that by following these questions 1 through 6 and then 7 through 9. Okay, and that's to help you because this is the first analysis, and it's to help you sort of see what you might be thinking of looking for. Any other questions? Okay, so here's the thing. I've given it to you this week. It's not due until the end of next week, meaning we can talk about it next week. So, oh, says Diego, yay. That's my point. What I will do on Monday, is today Tuesday? Yes. On Monday is look in the virtual office and see what questions people might have specifically that we can answer. And also ask you guys in here what questions you have that I can answer. Okay? So that presupposes that you would have taken some time to look at it. All right? Before. You don't have to do it because it's not due until, but you want to take a look at it and see if there's anything that's giving you a hard time. Okay. Last but not least, this week's reading post is actually a discussion post. I've opened the discussion section in week 2 for you to participate. Actually, I forgot to open it in this log. Yeah, so we need to open it. But it's in the online people. I'd like for you to reflect on this idea of language analysis. Have you ever done it before? What might be the pedagogical benefits of doing it? Okay, of really sort of taking time to analyze for a system based on our theoretical understanding that each learner at a slice of time has a system. Okay, your first data analysis is going to be posted in DocShare tomorrow. Well, today, for those of you that are watching on Wednesday, and it's due at the end of week 3. We can talk about it in class if you have any questions. Feel free to have discussions about it online with your colleagues. It's often helpful to talk to people about data analyses because they can sometimes see things that you don't see. Okay, but the final analysis must be your own and must be written up independently. Okay, so you can chit chat about the data, but you need to write up your own analysis independently without, you know, anybody else's input in that. All right. Questions? Okay. So I don't know if there's something wrong with me, but I actually find these things kind of fun. Fun?
Yeah,
Cool.
it looks challenging. Yeah.
It is challenging, but also assume that because I've given you that and it comes from a textbook, which is actually for undergraduates, before you, of problems for data analysis, that they've constrained it in some way. It's bound it. You know, there are things that they want you to sort of notice, and you know, it's not like a random crapshoot. I haven't just taken like a random piece of data out of the world and said, good luck with that. You know, they're sort of hoping that there's things that you'll see. Yeah. Okay. All right, you guys have done it. Done. Except for Tolu, I need to see you for 1 second. You guys have done.